So we are starting off with the shape. You could see from the previous thing that's the hair that we made. That was the original photo we started with, and we are now going to work with the face shape. Again, do what I told you. Alt click on that eye tool to bring out the outlines. Now we have this part here. We have the face, and we're going to, again, wherever I'm starting, I like to kind of figure out where the shadows are working. For you to be able to see the face and recognize the face, it's because of light interaction with the face. So there is always going to be some form of shadow or different kind of light interacting with the face. That's why I try to figure out where those different light interactions are, or the light interactions which are similar. That's what I try to figure out here. As you may see, I'm now trying to figure out which one are the darkest areas of this skin. All right, so because that will give me the shadows to start with. So I'm trying to demarcate, like, how are the shadows moving and how are they interacting with the light. That's why you will see the cursor is just moving along certain points of the face. That is just a quick analysis I do, and then after, just like I did for the hair, it helps me to bring up my pen tool and know where I'm going to move my shapes. Okay, so now I know now that the shadow is going to be moving kind of like this. So I'm going to create a subtle shadow starting from this point, and then I move it all over like that, and then it will go under the eye. It will go under the eye because this shape is below the eye, so I don't have to worry about that. Then it will go over the nose. That will essentially demarcate the nose blend, and then it will go just down there like this, all right, and then below there like that, and then around the mouth. Again, around the mouth there are a few highlights, but I'll take care of those. That shadow is still there. So again, this takes a little bit of practice. So you can begin with faces which aren't very, very washed out like this was, but in case you can also take your own photos where you will be able to see the lights clearly. So, but with a little bit of practice, again, you can always work with any photo that you want. It doesn't matter, right? So I'm starting out now with a blend, and as you can see, I'm making the demarcations just like I predicted. There is no single right or wrong. Different people can do this image and follow different blends, and we come up with the same. Okay? It's about how you interact with how your imagination visualizes this, and how you take it to be, and or how you work with it, right? But for a few cases, it's very, very important to stay uniform. For example, the nose. If you misinterpret the nose, you'll have a terrible image, right? But for like around the cheeks and the forehead, those areas, they are subjective, all right? They are subjective. As you may see, now I'm working with the eye, but I'm dropping some of the points that I didn't like. So I'm trying to avoid the highlights. In simple language, I'm avoiding the highlights. So if you look closely, you'll see that the highlights that I see in the face, for example, down the chin area, or the forehead there, or the nose area, or the mouth, you'll see that I'm avoiding the highlights, and I'm carefully or carelessly, whatever case, okay, I'm moving along the areas that I don't perceive as highlights. So there are like a little bit of dark areas, call them shadows, and they're not neutrals as well. They're just the kind of darkest areas. if you get a photo which you can easily see that it's much better, it will save you a lot of time, but some photos don't, right? So here you will see I'm not going to close it there, because essentially that will be giving me all the highlights, but I want the opposite. I want the shadows. Okay, so I can see that these shadows go beyond, they go beyond or to the edge of the face. So I'm going to use that technique of intersection right there, and that's why I'm carelessly moving up and about behind the hair, because I know I'm going to intersect using the face base shape and this shadow shape that I'm creating right now. I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so once I've made both of them, I'm going to make a copy of the face base shape by Ctrl C, Ctrl F, and then I'm going to bring up one of those shapes, turn it into an outline, select both shapes, the one I've just created and the face base shape, one of the copies, and then go down to the intersect panel and just intersect, and now you have just what I need. I have the shadow, the main shadow of the face. Now this shadow is always going to be very subtle. You're not going to see too much of it. That's why the next thing, that this is where it gets tricky. There are many ways to do it. This is how I like to do it. The next thing you normally do, okay, the next thing you normally do is to kind of figure out the color of the shape that you want to work with, and that's what you're going to do right now. So with that selected, you're going to go over to the eyedropper tool, and now look for the darkest color that is an average of the shadow that you've created. As you can see now, when I turn both on, you'll see now that shadow I just created it's like the darkest areas, right? So it's not, at this moment it's still terrible because it's still one single shape. That's why I took time to explain it in the first video. So what we're now going to do is copy and paste in front. Okay, so that's if you're happy with this color, because you can keep on tweaking, but let the color difference between the average base color be a little bit close to each other, right? So copy, paste, and then we're making the down on 0, and then we're going to again just bring in those details, right? We're going to just kind of bring in, make a smaller shape of the original shape, right? So that's why I'm taking time to turn off all layers so that I have only the 2 layers that I worked with. Okay, so here I'm just going to kind of, you'll see that that's what I'm doing there. I'm just pushing it in slowly, like making it I'm making it a little bit smaller than the original shape. So again, the amount of which you have to like demarcate depends. For example, the areas on or near the nose, okay, from the cheek to the nose, they will appear darker because there is a very steep change in the forms of the shape forms. Okay, that's why you see that the areas of those curves will be closer to each other, right? Whereas on areas like the chin or the forehead, I'll try to make them as far as I can push them to be. Okay, so in some cases it may not work really well, but again, you don't worry too much, but make sure you kind of separate the distance so that you can allow the blend to take place, right? So here you can see that these areas which are not very, there is no much shape going on, I'm leaving as much wide of a gap as I can, and make sure that you're using the nodes, not the points. But the areas of the nodes, you realize that I'm leaving as small space, okay, simply because there is a change of form, so the light interacts, kind of causing a bigger shadow there, whereas areas like the forehead, you have to leave a very big space, because there is no much light change over that area. I don't know if that makes sense, okay. But what you want to do is you want to make a smaller version of the shapes that you're working with, the original shape that you created, just like I explained in the video before starting this. And for the hair areas, don't mind too much about that, doesn't really matter whatever you do over there, because that part is going to be locked behind the hair, okay. And basically, that after doing that, you go to blend options. If you're doing it for the first time, again, choose a demarcation. I use 250 most times, and then go back to blend. Then you go back to blend and then make, or you can just simply Ctrl-Alt-B on your keyboard, and go to effect, Gaussian blur, and then give it a blur with maybe 1.5, and okay. All right, so then if you to zoom out now, all right, you realize that, and switch on both parts, of course, you realize now that it has a softer edge from the original. Now when you turn all the shapes on, you'll now see that there is a softer shadow that is demarcating shape, okay. You can now clearly see that it's now no longer a plain face-based shape like it was earlier. Now there is this part, okay, that shows you that, oh, the nose could be this big, or the eyes could be this wide, or like, so it now begins bringing life into it, okay. And the next part, if you see that you should adjust the transparency so that you don't make them really too much, okay. It has to be, I like to make it subtle. That's how I work normally. If I find any better method, I'll make sure that I show you that, right? So again, this is basically the thing. It's an editor. You can see now that when you turn off the eyes, for example, you can see that this shape now, you can see it has form to it. It has like the area, you can see the eye is supposed to be here, and the nose is supposed to be this big or this long or this wide or this short, thin, whatever. And then the mouth is supposed to be here, and then the chin is supposed to be there. You can see that in that base shape. That's why you lay the first foundation of that. Now the next part, the next tasks are going to be to identify the areas that have different tones to them, okay. So again, they're going to be lying onto this base shadow. So we can start with the eyes, the areas around the eyes. Again, you can see that there are so many forms of shape around, okay. So again, I'm not going to go on and trying to make you see. I'm just going to do a couple more to make this video, to avoid making this video very long. It's the same process. I start out by demarcating what area I want, and then I bring my pen tool, all right, turn off the distracting areas that you don't want to be disturbing, and then just demarcate out the shadow area that you see. Now, the thing is, you have to, when you're doing these blends, it's the same thing that happens for the shadows. It's the same thing that happens for the highlights, okay. The highlights and the shadows, it's the same thing. You still, even if you're working with highlights, you're just going to identify which area of the highlights you want to work with, and that's what you're going to use. Next part, when you do that, you're going to bring your pen tool, and then what brought you there, which color brought you there. Just try sampling an average area of the color that you're trying to give to that specific shape. All right, now when you give it that color, all right, so that's why I'm trying to do kind of trials and errors. I'm trying to find out which color best suits. After you find the color, just duplicate it, Ctrl C, Ctrl F, change the down opacity to 100, and then bring the upper shape, you make it smaller, keeping in mind the areas which need to have a smaller gradient, a smaller distance between the two shapes, or a larger distance between the two shapes. Okay, so for example, this part needs to have kind of relatively similar distance between the shapes. So then the next part is you're blending them, right? So since we did it for the first time, we just go to blend automatically, and then Gaussian blur, and then okay. All right, so now the next part, so you could essentially turn them on, and then you see how it's doing. What this helps you to understand is you're now going to try and match the transparency of this with, that's why you're decreasing the transparency here, and I'm going to put it at a different value, and then try to see how well it blends with the original image. Okay, so you will see now that it's kind of all right, it blends a little bit okay with the original image. And now again, the next part, if you see that it's not really blending well, you can go back and change the opacity again to a different value, okay, higher or lower depending on what you want. For this I try to go really I'm trying to go really low and make it very subtle, very subtle. So it doesn't mean that whatever you try to go for, that illusion, however subtle it is, it's going to create whatever you want to portray, whoever you want to portray is going to come out very clearly. I'm just going to do for a couple more shapes. Again, here I'm trying to see where is my line going to pass. I always don't do this. Sometimes, of course, when you get experienced, you will try to see very clearly, and you'll just do it on the spot. But again, for more complicated structures and for the purpose of this video also, I try to demarcate for you how I'm trying to come up with these shapes, and you're trying to find out like, why am I moving here? As you can see, these are areas of kind of similar darker areas which are not part of the main blend. Okay, so it's just me trying to come up with these areas that are a little bit darker, because that will show different light interactions, and with different light interactions it will come up with the original face or image of any person or any creature that you're trying to illustrate. So again, the next part, it will be to come up with a color. Now the color that I used in the first part is the color that I'm going to use again. So Ctrl C, Ctrl F, paste in front, and then change the opacity of the down one to 0, lock that so that you don't move it around, and then make the upper shape smaller. Now you're making the upper shape smaller, and again you're working with this idea of you're making it a little bit smaller, just like that. Okay, so for these smaller shapes, you don't really worry too much about how the distance between the blends, because there are small shapes, there is little distance that you can work with. Okay, so this thing is you blend it, you blend, and then apply your Gaussian blur. Okay, and check. you're making essentially very many shapes. You can make over 50 shapes on this, but it's very important to check for each shape to see how well it blends with the image that you're working with, because if it's not blending well, then you can adjust. If you don't like that color, then you can adjust, other than if you try to do it all at once without checking, and then you find out that you're messing up the entire time, and then you have to do it again, and then you'll be demoralized. Okay, so you try to make it as much as possible. Try to come up with an idea that you kind of get into a practice of like checking your blends all the time. Okay, check your blends and see how well they portray the message you want, because here you're designing, but again, so you can see I'm now putting a blend on top of a blend, because again, this is what the image is telling me, right? So you can see that this is kind of tending towards black, so I'm looking for all those areas which are really dark and which have this color average. So again, you will see that those darker areas that have that color average is what I'm going for, and you can see that. So you probably by now know what I'm going for. Again, I'm going to get my eyedropper tool, and then I look for that color. All right, so there it is, and it's by the way the same color on the other side as well. So I'll go back again and change it. So copy paste in front, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+F, close that, do that, and then I'll make this smaller. It's the same process. Okay, the thing with some photos is like some photos are funny, you know, like the thing, it's like when you're trying to work with some photos, they don't have that many blends. You just work with a few blends and then that's it. But there are other photos where you have to have much detail. For example, photos where somebody is smiling, for example, there will be very many features, dimples and faces around the mouth, and then everything that you'll have to work with. Okay, so keep in mind there is no single way to do it, right? So go to the blend, make blend, and then after just apply Gaussian blur. Okay, the Gaussian blur, it helps to smoothen out the faces. When you're working with faces and softer tissue, like tissue things or softer fabric, whatever, you should use you should use kind of the blur to that's why I use blur to signify this idea of being soft, because if you don't do it, then the image is just too dark and like everything is not working really well. Okay, maybe if you're doing like, if you're illustrating clothes, as we shall see in future tutorials, you want to have both those parts like working together. So you don't want to have a Gaussian blur in clothes unless you're working with like jeans and cardigans, sweatshirts like that, which are soft fabric. So again, you can see it's the same process I'm going to do. The only idea here, you have to identify, you have to train your eye to have an understanding of like, where am I doing this now, like where are the shapes, how is the light interacting with what I'm doing. Okay, so it's the same thing. Okay, after that you want to turn back on your two blends and then turn everything back on, and then see how it interacts with whatever you're doing. All right, so if you like that color, you go with that. If you don't like it, you change, you do the necessary things. Okay, so you will see that here I'm going to try to lower the opacity. So I'm going to bring it down maybe to 80. See how well it blends. All right, so it's kind of the same process. I don't want to waste too much of your time. Now I'm going to make only one more shape, and I will fast forward this video And if you have understood already what we are going for, there is no need to watch the next one because it's going to be the exact same thing. All right, whether I'm doing it for the nostrils, whether I'm doing it, it's just the same thing. I'm identifying what are the dark areas that I need to work with, and that's what I'm going for. Okay, so step one, just turn off the layers that are obstructing, like the blends that you've already made and everything. Turn them off and then begin to identify. All right, so here you'll see that the eyes have started forming a little bit, but there's still too much work to do for them, right, around the area, so to make the face, to bring out the nose and everything, all that you need to do. Okay, so I'm turning off those. Again, now I'm coming up with which other shape am I? Well, there is no simple order, just do what you're doing. So you can see the shapes around there, right? So you can see that area, you see that, if you can see very closely, you will see that there is that nose shape. This is going to be my last, and then I'll fast forward the rest. So you can see that I'm trying to demarcate the area, like how is this going to work out? How am I going to move past it? Okay, so you can see how complex this shape is going to be if I decide to follow through the exact same pattern that I've laid out. Okay, so with my shape, I'm going to bring up my pen tool. We turn those off first. Sorry. So I'm going to bring up my pen tool, and then I'm going to try and come up with the exact. Sometimes you make this analysis, and then when you're doing it, you find a better idea, and then you follow that. But it's generally showing you the colors of average color areas that you're trying to blend with the best shape. Okay, so this is it's not like it may be, it may have a little bit of art in it, maybe, but it's not like it doesn't follow the idea like art does. For example, in art you have the anatomy of the body and that. No, here we are basically doing light interactions with the face. Okay, so you're not following a specified set of rules to come up with what you want. You're rather following the ideas of how the light interacted with the face of that person at that specific time. All right, so maybe that makes a very subtle difference between this art and the conventional art that normally people do, right? So it's not the same thing. It's not like here you're using light mostly all the time, whereas in art you're going to form very many things. Like you have to understand how the shapes of the muscles, like the anatomy of the body, and then things like that. Okay, so maybe this may be a little bit easier to understand, but again, it takes practice for you to perfect the things that are the ideas that you want to portray. Because again, if you can't identify the colors of the person, of the image that you're working with, if you can't identify how the light interacts with people, then it will be hard for you. But it's not. It's generally it should be much easier than art. So you look at this as more of as design, right? So the funny thing is that also when I started, I couldn't really figure out how do you come up with this. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you normally figure out how the light is interacting? Because like a face like this seems to have nothing on it, right? It seems to be like flawless, like how people normally call it, right? But for whichever face, there is always something. There is always something, and your job is to look for that. So it's through training. You don't watch so many videos. That's why this video is entirely focused on this area, and the other videos will be to explore different concepts. Okay, other videos, there are so many concepts that I didn't include in here because I didn't want to make this an ever long tutorial. So I chose this image because it lacked some of those very complex areas like gradients on the face, or like the clothes. Okay, so there are very many things that I didn't cover here, but you don't worry, I'll be posting everything here on my YouTube channel. So you just make sure you look out for those, alright? So you can see now, if this shape works out properly, it should give us exactly an outline of the nose. But of course, it won't have the nose one. We shall go through those nostrils again, do the same process to give them that darker area. Right here, I'm just trying to come up with a color that is kind of darker, so that I know. You can even, before doing everything, you can cross-check and see how well is it going to interact. So if you like it, then you proceed to the blend. If you don't like it, you change the color, right? So I like it, so I'm going to Ctrl+C, Ctrl+F, so that is copy paste in front, and it will essentially begin the same process again. Just change to 0, lock that layer so you don't move it, and just bring your direct selection tool or A on your keyboard, and then just push them in like that. Okay, so you're making them just smaller, and as you can see, this area here is like these areas which have a very small shape blend. You want to make them as small as possible as well. So as you can see, there is a mistake. So you want to make them as small as possible. So yeah, as you may see, I pulled up the wrong. That's why you should lock your layers first, because I was adjusting the lower part. So that's why you should always lock your downer layer so that you don't mistakenly select it. That's what happened just now, right? So sometimes you'll select it, and then when you go to blend them, you realize that you're getting some weird artifacts, and then you're like, oh, what happened? But it's because you interchanged the shapes. So again, you'll see I'm just trying to quickly do that. Quick tool, when you're doing that, you see that hand tool, it helps to select. If you don't know, you just click your space bar on your keyboard and then scroll to the place you want. It helps saves you time in like going to the scroll and just scroll using your mouse, blah blah. You just kind of click the space bar, brings up the hand tool, and then you can just click to the place you want. So here, this is going to be the last shape, and after this I'm going to fast forward everything else, okay? Because these were like the most complicated areas of the body. But this face lacks a lot of detail, like I said. it lacks a lot of detail, but it has a lot of highlights. So the thing is, when you're done with the shadows, you can do the shadows first. When you're done with the shadows, do the same thing for the highlights. When you're done with that, you essentially have your illustration. And normally the shape blends don't take long. They take you like an hour. Like if you do it very, very carefully, just put in it, like listen to a podcast or something as you're doing it, and then it's very, very easy. All right, you learn as you do. Like if you're like a motivation junkie like that, you can switch on your favorite podcast and then listen as you walk. Okay, so you can see that how the nose is blending with the entire body. So if you're happy with that, the next part, just go on. Otherwise, just decrease the opacity to a little bit so that it's not too much. So that's what I'm going to do next. Here, that's what you're seeing. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward the rest of the parts, and I'll see you then. Now I want to explain the neck. I've just created the neck outline, just as you can see here. Okay, it just follows, it's just a neck base shape like this. It's not anything fancy, and I gave it this color. All right, so the thing is, here you don't follow the neck exactly as it is, because some shapes are going to be hidden behind the clothes and hair and head, so you don't worry. Okay, so you now are going to begin with, for example, the shadow under there. You can see that shadow, right? Again, it's going to be exactly the same thing as we did in the beginning. Nothing is going to change, right? All you have to do is you're going to now do the intersection part. Remember that part? Now this is going to be a little bit different. Okay, so you're going to begin with, again, the face base shape. Now I've made a duplicate of the face shape that I made earlier in the beginning. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make this, because I can't follow the shadow exactly as I want it to be, but what I can do is I can make a rough shape down here which follows a shadow below, and then I just form something above, and then I duplicate it as much as I want. Okay, let me show you what I mean. So here I'm going to just make something like this. It's just following a curve like that. Let me do this one moment. Okay, so you can see it's like I just want to create those parts which are like very, very dark up under the shadow, the shadow under the jaw or the chin of the. Okay, so her chin under there, it has a shadow, and that's what I'm trying to follow. All right, so here now this will be a little tricky, because instead of intersecting it, we're just going to do maybe an opposite of intersecting. So we're going to click the minus back, and once on the pathfinder, under the pathfinder, we've clicked the minus back. So it has done a little bit of like giving us the shape that we want down there, that lining. And again, we're going to sample it, and we're going to change the colors as to give the average color that we want, essentially. And we're then going to do that blending of the shapes again. Okay, so here we're just changing them, and we're going to see how it works. And then the other parts again, they're going to be exactly the same, save for one area where I want to show you about the blends of. Quickly, I'm going to just quickly touch on the idea of gradients in this area, how you can use gradients, and why you need to use them instead of using the blends, when you should use them and how you should use them. Okay, so here quick to 50, okay, and then blend it. And then the Gaussian black follows. Okay. Sometimes, by the way, you need to zoom out before you try out your Gaussian blur, because if your computer is not strong enough, if you do the Gaussian blur and it's zoomed in way too much, it will form weird stuff that you would not like. Okay. I don't know why Illustrator does that, but it happens sometimes. So you will see that now we have that shadow under there. What we need to do is to reduce the opacity so that it kind of fits in. As you may see, it's not so perfect yet. Again, yeah, it's because of those two colors. Let me delete this real quick. Yeah. Okay, so you can now reduce the opacity of that area to give it maybe a 10, 20 or something, so that it's just subtle. Okay. Now the next part I'm going to talk about is the gradient area. And the gradient, we're going to use the original base shape of the neck. We're going to copy and paste in front just like this, and we're going to try using the gradient. Now the gradient, it helps to add like dimension of roundness. That's how I like to use it. For example, the light on the areas down there, it appears differently. At the edges it may be darker, and at the what do they call it, at the in the middle of the area there is too much light, whereas the light at the edges of the neck is kind of not too much. Okay, so here what we want to do is to find a way of making two different areas where they, let's say two areas where the light kind of interacts with our neck. We want to make those areas dark where there is a little bit of darkness due to the shadows cast by the hair, and then we want to also make the areas that's supposed to be light, we also want to make them light. So here I'm fidgeting around with angles, but that doesn't really matter because I'm trying to find out how to understand the area, the stuff that I'm working with. Okay, so when I come up with this, for example, pattern that I want to use, the next part is trying to figure out, let me quickly try to figure out exactly which angle I should use. Again, you could use these angles, or you could just go and use a different method that I'll be explaining it in different tutorials. Okay, so here you can adjust those areas like that and like that, just to make sure that you try to imitate as much as you can. Then go to, once you're happy with, for example, what you want, That is a terrible idea to do. Don't put it to 0. It's terrible. I don't. Oh, it's essentially, you can always do that, but it's not effective at all in any way, shape or form. It's not. I don't ever advise you to do that, but what we do is to change the blend mode to multiply. When you change the blend mode to multiply, the areas that are white are going to become transparent, and the areas that are dark are going to be kind of blended into the shape. So that will cause a shadow-like effect, as you may see back there. Now don't worry about this, I'll be explaining it in future tutorials, and do not worry too much about how this blend mode works if you don't really understand it. But the thing is, you should understand that if you want to create blends like this that don't really have a dimension shape to add, you can always do that. Okay, so that is why I'm doing that. When you try to figure out, you could come up with such a blend. For example, now we have such a blend. Now the next part is just clothing, and I'm not going to go in detail about that in this tutorial again, because there is nothing much to really work with. But to simply address the issue is just create a new layer, and again you're just going to try and follow the dress form, the base form of the dress. Again, I'll be following this up in future tutorials, do not worry. Change that to an outline view, and then change it down, like just make it as close as you can, okay, to the original image. So here I'm going to bring it up to this side and then bring it like this, and like that. Don't worry about that area because it's going to be below the hair, so that area. And oh, that's wrong, terrible, forgot to do that, sorry. Then do that here, because what we want to do is to form a complete shape that is closed up. All right, so do not worry about the areas there, how that area works, because it's going to be under the hair. And just change that color, and once you turn back on, you'll have all your shapes just like that. But again, we shall be exploring this in future tutorials on how to really create a realistic dress.